Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast, a podcast about television. This is episode 4 of the week of March 10th, 2023. My name's Drew Koenig. This is the part where I would introduce Logan, but they are taking an indefinite hiatus from the podcast, and we wish them the best in whatever they do after this. But as a result, I will be having guest co-hosts on for the next coming weeks until I can find a permanent someone to replace Logan. And this week I have Lizzie from Fangirlish and Comic Book Resources. Lizzie, hi.
Hi. I'm here to disagree with Drew.
Yes.
Whatever, everything.
Yes, if you listen to us on the Lost Cause pod, you'll know that Lizzie appeared a number of times on there, and her role is to disagree with me.
Yeah, I take it very seriously. I don't even try. It just happens naturally. I just want you all to know that I'm not coming here trying to disagree with Drew, but that will happen anyway.
It will happen. It's just, some things are unavoidable. They just happen by forces of nature.
It is the way it is.
So yeah, we took a little break there, but we're back and should be in constant rotation now. So Lizzie, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay, my name is Lizzie, and I am the senior features editor now at CBR and the editor-in-chief at Fangirlish. I also have a podcast now too that's called I'm Not Yelling, I'm Just Latina with my friend Lyra. And we're also discussing TV. We're in a little bit of a bubble with a lot of people who just like to talk about TV. But I just have a lot of opinions about TV. Most of them are very opposite of what Drew thinks. And you can find me probably yelling about those opinions on Twitter at Lizzie That if you want to come tell me why you disagree with me. Though I will say, I don't think people disagree with me as much as they disagree with Drew.
That's true. Disagreements do abound with me.
I mean, I'm not even going to go into the history of our disagreements because we're going to have more in this podcast, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, they are multiple and varied. They are indeed legion. I always remember the quote from Sports Night, which is like, so anyway, how's your week been, Lizzie?
My week has been good. Oh, good. It's been a good week on TV. It's been a good week personally. I was sort of at work. Just work was insane. I needed more help, and then someone was hired. It's been a good week. Like, I think I've been able to enjoy TV or not enjoy TV, depending on what we're gonna discuss more this week than in the past. Like, and there's also so much stuff going on. Like, it's hard to just enjoy when you sort of do this for a living. It almost feels like homework. Like, oh, my homework is to watch this episode of TV, and I try not to let it get to a point where I forget that I also enjoy it. But sometimes it does get that, and I think it's been good to take a step back and be like, oh, I do enjoy this show and this other show. So that's been good.
Yeah. Well, there's a series I've been doing on my Substack where I've gone back and I'll go to some random year and then watch an episode from this week of that year. And it's like that's been really helpful in kind of being like, oh no, I actually do just love watching television, to just go back to 2002 and just watch a random episode and be like, oh yes, this is really nice not to have to be caught up on the 600 TV shows that come out every year,
right, to have a conversation. Yeah, I did. This morning I think I rewatched the pilot of Buffy because today, March 10th, is the 26th anniversary of its premiere. So I felt a little nostalgic, and then I rewatched the pilot of Buffy, and then I said, I should probably not rewatch this show if I don't want to hate it. Because I mean, I don't think it's aged very well. I got my nostalgia out of the way.
Right. Yeah. Like I watched. What did I watch last week? I watched an episode of Saint Elsewhere from 1986, and I was like, oh, this is really nice to just step back and not necessarily have to deal with all the TV-ness of TV, just
so
very
much
slowed down. And I was like, well, I was telling a friend I was watching Saint Elsewhere, and they're like, do you think it's aged well? And I was like, there are episodes of Chicago Med that I don't think have aged well.
Right. You are absolutely right. I mean, all things considered, that show, even the X-Files, you can watch a lot of their standalone episodes by itself, and they've aged much better than some shows from some of the procedurals lately. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's nice to just like be reminded that like, oh no, I actually do like television and not just like the grind of television, you know?
Hmm.
Which is so
Yeah.
much of like what it is now. Because I've been going through like TV lineups and like jumping back from like the 80s and then going to like 2017, and you're like, holy shit, this is so much worse.
It feels like every week there are five big new. March has been insane. It's like, March, can you stop?
Yeah, well, like the problem with March for TV is that March is for TV what like November and December are for movies, which are like these like trying to hit like award deadlines to be
Yeah.
like eligible for submissions and voting and like be in the mind of like voters. And so that's for like
That
people listening who don't realize like why March and April are so insane months. This is why.
Yeah, that's why we're getting Ted Lasso before I expected it. Probably why we're getting Succession, like where we're getting all of those things right now. When they were announced, and you're like, okay, I got a couple of months. Then they're like, no, they're coming already. Like, let me breathe.
Breathe, yeah. Yeah, we went from like no announcements for Ted Lasso, no nothing to it's coming really soon, which is a lot of like whiplash.
Right, and it felt like it took a lot of time to film and to have it ready, and there were delays, and everyone was sort of like, well, maybe at the end of the year, and then they're like, no, it's coming in a month. Be ready. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of does cement the fact that there's just no rules for any of this. Like any kind of rule you think should apply to like TV does not. Like any kind of
Yeah.
like how any of this is actually done. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
No, and the streamers have changed every conversation, so everyone's just doing whatever they want and seeing
Yeah.
what sticks.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway, my week's been okay. Just get back. TV is
Oh,
what TV is. Work is fine. I live in Ohio, so apparently maybe I don't have drinkable water
oh,
because of the train crash up north. But
but all's good. Maybe I don't have drinkable water, but who needs that?
yeah, who needs water? Yeah,
All good.
yeah, yeah. Big old question mark there. It's weird. Yeah,
Okay, so maybe his week has not been as good as he said, but
yeah,
like I mean, my week has been much better than yours because I do have drinking water. But
yeah.
I mean, I'm judging all of my weeks based on a couple of weeks ago. I was visiting family in Buffalo, and there was a bad snowstorm, so we were trapped without power for like a couple of days. And I was like,
Ooh.
this is the lowest it can go. It's like, I'm gonna judge all my weeks now based on this week where I was cold, there was no power, and I could not get out.
Yeah, yeah. Some weeks are worse than others. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't to be clear, I don't not have drinkable drinking water, but I I you know,
Yes.
there's enough of a question mark for everyone to be like,
Do we?
yeah, when you know you don't entirely trust your water when you're like, would I give this water to my pet?
Right.
Like that's the litmus test of like, do I give this water to my pet or do I go buy bottled water? And if you go buy bottled water, you don't have clean water.
Yeah. Because if you don't think you do, you don't.
Yeah. Yes. uh yeah, so that's fun. That's great. Yeah, I work at a grocery store, and we had I was working one night and I just overheard a manager going, "Why the fuck do we have 11 pallets of water?
This is why.
This is why." And you're like, "Oh, this is going to be great." But anyway, moves along. So, get into some news here, and I'm just going to do one quick piece of news. I don't want to spend forever on this. But this week in basically fuck around and find out. The Rolling Stone did a big piece over the week or last week? Last week. Basically detailing how HBO's upcoming show, The Idol, is basically become a clusterfuck. Did you read this piece?
No, I don't think I did.
So it details how Sam Levinson has turned as what one source
No,
calls it.
no. I did read it. You go
Yeah.
ahead, but I have thoughts. I did read it.
Yes, yes. Uh, one source says Sam Levinson turned what should be a story about female sexuality into a man being abusive and the woman coming back for more, essentially. Which is a really excellent way to surmise that. And there's a lot in the report of like what actually has gone down, and it's kind of a there's kind of a lot there. But it basically details like how Amy Siemens, who was originally brought on to direct, was over time just like gradually pushed out of the series, and then Sam Levinson was brought in, who just kind of retooled the show at like whole hog pretty much, because what the report says is that they had filmed the majority of it and of what had been a $50 to $70 million project for HBO, which is an insane figure on its own. Like why HBO is spending $50 to $70 million on anything, but even more that they just scrapped that almost entirely. And then Sam Levinson came in. And also The Weeknd has a lot to blame here, who is one of these stars along with Lily Rose Depp, and kind of just changed changed the entire concept of like what The Idol was originally meant to be, going away from, as The Weeknd puts it, a female perspective that he did not like.
Right? How dare they?
How dare they focus a story about like female trauma and abuse away from that female perspective. Insane. Yeah, we could talk forever about like everything that's like gone on with this production and Sam Levinson in general, but tell me some of your thoughts you had about this.
I can see clearly the thought process behind it, and even though I can see it clearly, doesn't have to make sense just because I can see it clearly. This guy comes in, you don't want to lose him. He's behind Euphoria, one of your biggest hits. So HBO is basically like, well, you do whatever, but you do whatever means. Like, I think you and I wouldn't mind one of those millions, so we could like make our own thing. Like they just threw 50 to 70 millions down. Like, it's fine, we can start again. And this isn't even like House of the Dragon. This is just, I don't know that they are really gonna get as much back with the Idol as they're getting from some of their surefire properties. So it's just insane to me because it feels to me like HBO is like, well, we're willing to throw this money away because of Euphoria. Like we're not gonna lose this guy. But Sam has had some issues in Euphoria too. And also that show basically works because of the female perspective. Which there are issues with that show too. We could be here all day talking about it. But it's sort of more or less kept the female perspective, which was what they took from this other show. And then the funniest thing to me was sort of the spin and the Weeknd kind of be like, oh, like how dare you, like the response from the Weeknd to the report was hilarious. Like it was all a big joke. And like I don't know who even wants to watch the show anymore with whatever it is they did now. But just the fact that the TV industry is where it is, like HBO can throw this money away, but HBO Max has no money for bad. Like, what is going on? Like, can someone just arrive at a midpoint here?
Right, yeah, it is insane. And like the same like few months that we've had like HBO Max like deleting shows from its catalog, like like a fire sale, because like they need to basically tax cuts, like to like hedge money. And here there's they like wasted at least $50 million on this project just for Sam Levinson to, as this report lays out, kind of like engage in like rape fantasies,
Right.
which like is a lot of like what Sam Levinson traffics in.
Yeah.
Like if you look at like a lot of the body of his work, and even not rape fantasies, but weird gender dynamics in his work. Like a lot of people didn't like Assassination Nation before like he was even on Euphoria, and Euphoria has like a lot of like even just in the way that like Sydney Sweeney is portrayed on that show.
Yep.
And then like oh, I forget the name of it offhand, but his movie with Zendaya, which is just which is
horrible.
just one long attempt to get back at an LA Times critic. Like
Yeah. I don't know why guys like him get this much. Like, I don't think any of whatever people enjoyed in Euphoria has that much to do with him. Like I think the actresses, like I think there's a lot there that work for people. I doesn't work for me. The show just I don't like it. But then he gets a hit, and let's say he's got like 10% of the credit, but then they give him 100% mentally, and then everything he touches has to be done, and it's gold, and like it's fine. Everything I've heard, all the reports I have from him, from even like before Euphoria was like big, concerning, and that he keeps getting a chance to do it all over and over again. Says a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Like part of like people like give tiny credit to Sam Levinson, which I'm not inclined to do. A lot of like people like about Euphoria is the stylistic approach, along with the strong female presences in the show. But like that stylism only takes you so far, you know. But like if you take like everything going on and then like you look at like what was happening behind the scenes in like Euphoria season 2 with like troubled production, sidelining Barbie Ferreira, like
Yeah,
constant like writing issues, like
it's
it creates a very distinct picture with this Rolling Stone article.
right. And then I don't think anything's gonna come out of it. Like we had this conversation, a lot of people have had the conversation. Is anything gonna come out of it? Probably not.
No, no, it just kind of put the spotlight on the extent that he is a nepo, you know?
Yep.
Like he was given this because like his dad's a big shot. And it's just like a snowball that just keeps going down a hill.
Yep. But isn't that Hollywood for you?
Yep, yep. But yeah, it's overall a mess. And I would encourage everyone to go read the Rolling Stone report because there are a lot of sources like behind the scenes on the production crew that kind of just go like, "This is I aggressively do not like this. What's going on right now?" And one source called it like being in the middle of a divorce. Like I liked what was going on here, and then Sam Levinson came in and like I don't know which camp to side with here, you know. But yeah, it's a nightmare. It's a true and honest nightmare. Yeah. So that's all I have to say about that. Because we could be here all day dissecting that report.
Yeah.
Oof. So let's jump into the goat. So the goat is a recurring weekly segment where myself and a guest, Lizzie, in this case, will pick a TV episode or character and put them up against each other, and then be decided on a poll on Twitter and TikTok. Um,
You
so
go first.
yeah, I'll go first. So I did this. I did this for an article I was working on for my Substack, and then it was such a good episode that I thought I'd mention it here too. And this is it is the Simpsons season 4 episode 17, Last Exit to Springfield. And this is a really interesting episode because it's both labeled as like one of the best episodes the Simpsons ever did before it kind of took like that downward trajectory to being not a good show. Like you're still in like season 4, so it's still trugging along. But it's kind of a fascinating episode. And like this came out in like 1992, and this is like a very weird union episode. Like it's a very simple episode of Homer becoming the union leader at the nuclear power factory after Mr. Burns, the owner of the factory and like eternal optimist, eternal like capitalist, and definitely what Donald Trump thinks he is, tries to take out the dental plan from the union contract. And so that in itself is a very simple episode, and then it's just stuffed with so many like gags, like doing like a weird like the Grinch riff at one point, and there's a really funny joke that shouldn't work at all of someone saying that the dental plans can be taken out of the contract, and Homer has like this 30-second inner monologue that's just dental plan and Lisa needs braces, and it's just those two things back and forth for a good 30 seconds until it like hits upon an actual punchline. It's so protracted, and it shouldn't go as long as it does, but it's somehow hilarious. Um, but it's this kind of weird episode about unions that's both like pro and anti-union, and as someone who's been in a union for like most of the last 10 years, of like imagining that like unions could ever be like a source of like deep corruption is like kind of laughable to me. uh where like most of the time a union is just a kind of haphazard thing of like you call them if you might get fired, and that's pretty much what they're good for. uh so it's very funny to like see Homer like do a kind of Godfather rip for like a second of like you might get put into organized crime. It's like, well, that's sure, yes. But yeah, like it's just this is like the Simpsons at the top of its game, is what I'd say. So that's my submission for the goat this week.
Okay, I kind of spoiled you when I talked about what I watched earlier today, but today's the 26th, I think, anniversary of the pilot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I rewatched the pilot today, and I'm not gonna go into all the Joss Whedon of it all and the issues I think that show probably has um on rewatch, and like whether it holds up, because I don't think it does. Like even the pilot has like I remember sort of watching it as a teenage girl and being like, "Oh, look, Angel is like stalking her. How cute." Now I'm like an adult. I'm like, "What is this show?" Like he's literally stalking her. Like just because she can probably take him doesn't mean this is cute. But I did get some sort of nostalgia vibes from the episode. Like mostly because I feel like there was so little back in the day, like back in the day, 1997. God, how old I feel. I just said back in the day. But I think it's become more common to have this sort of young adult kind of shows where the main characters is a girl who kicks ass kind of thing. It's become more common, but it wasn't as common when Buffy came out. And though I don't age wise and like memory wise, I don't think I watched it like as it was airing, or like at least not the first few seasons. I do remember watching it at like a relatively young age and being like look at Buffy, like look at her being like the hero of the story and like what that meant. So I was really transported to that little place of, oh, girls can kick ass. And I honestly think pilots are hit or miss. They're either really good or really bad. This is a pretty good pilot at establishing the story. I don't want to give Joss Whedon any kind of credit, but it's probably the things he does well. And like Sam Levinson, we talked about before, Joss Whedon's problems are different than just his writing, and it does bleed out into the storyline later in Buffy. And even in some of the ways Buffy is presented, like you can probably now tell that this is a man telling a teenage girl's story. It's kind of creepy when you think about it. Like the whole angel of it all, and then Spike, like those things are not as great. But I just, in general, I do think the pilot is pretty decent, and the nostalgia vibes of it all are impossible to top. Like, even though I wanted to watch it critically, there was a part of me that was still like, "You go, Buffy." And then also just like watching Anthony Stewart Head, like young and not evil, like Rupert and Ted Lasso, was just so nice. He was like everyone's dad for a good decade there, and now I just have to see him in Ted Lasso, and I'm so tired of him being evil. So yeah, just I think Buffy can beat The Simpsons every day. I'm sorry.
That's fair. Yeah, like I already know how this ball's going to go, so I've kind of accepted that. That's fine.
I'd say I'm sorry, but I'm not.
Yeah, I know how TikTok's gonna respond to this ball. I'm not upset or surprised.
I mean, I didn't even do it on purpose. I just saw the date, saw that it was the anniversary, said I'm gonna watch, and then I remembered that you had this segment, so I was like, I'm gonna watch the pilot and see how it does. And here we are. So
Here we are. Here we are indeed. Yep. Yep. All right. Yeah. So that is the Simpsons season 4, episode 17, Last Exit to Springfield, going up against Buffy the Vampire Slayer, season 1, episode 1, pilot. And so this poll will be up on Twitter and TikTok, and you'll have 2 days to vote after it goes up. Now, on to the rest of the show.
Found me lost in a daydream feeling. I've been awake too long. My eyes are open while my heart keeps sinking deeper till the days are gone. Doesn't mean I couldn't believe it. Doesn't mean I won't believe it still. Every lie is true at the time, baby, that's the thrill.
So our first episode here, and this is kind of digging back a little bit from when we were on break, but this is Harley Quinn, a very problematic Valentine's Day special. So people who have listened to this podcast, I think we talked about it on this podcast. We definitely talked about it on Lost Cause Pod. I'm a big fan of Harley Quinn as a show, and so was very excited for them to do a Valentine's Day special. But so, Lizzie, what did you think of this?
I mean, it sounds to me like you did not like it. So I would like to know if this is where we're gonna start disagreeing. It's like the first show we're gonna discuss. Because I actually really enjoyed the Valentine's special. I really enjoy, this is one of those shows we agree on. I really enjoy the show for what it is. And not even for what it is. Like, I don't think it's less than other things. It's just the medium they've chosen, I think works. The way they do the characters, I think works. And I thought, I mean, the Valentine's Day special was a little, I mean, it was kind of silly, but then again, I don't know if maybe if you went in with a different expectation of what this special was going to be about, what I expected it to be and what I expected it to give me, delivered pretty well. I absolutely love how much this show has just decided to, we're going to go with Harley and Poison Ivy. They're like, whatever the Joker, whatever other story we might have seen in live action with Harley Quinn. What's that? This is all that matters, is what we have in this show. And I think it works really well. Like, I don't know if it would work as well in live action, but in this medium, it works really well. I thought the special was fun. And I know you're just going to have something bad to say about it. It's okay. You get it over with.
Joke's on you. I love this special.
Damn it. Okay. Then we're good for one. Okay, I'm going to have a running list. We actually agree on number 1. Shocker.
Yes. Yeah. I thought this was terrific. Yeah, like, the fun thing about Harley Quinn as a show is it's taking something that we already know, an established IP. And, like, I've said this before, in the same way that, like, Star Trek Lower Decks is lovingly upending, like, everything that is that franchise. That is what Harley Quinn is doing for the DC universe. And it's just this heightened, exaggerated, not to make a pun of this, but like an absolute clown fest out of everything that like DC has been doing over the last few decades. And just like both like saying that like this is incredibly silly, but also we love this, which I always thought was really important. And then like taking that same mindset to like Valentine's Day specials as a whole of like, yes, this is all very silly. Like Valentine's Day at all is silly. Like
Absolutely. Even on that, we agree, which is we are part of this podcast. Yes, it is silly.
Yes. And so just like the succession of events in this episode of Harley trying to like essentially one up herself and giving Ivy like the best Valentine's Day she's ever had. Yeah, like it all fits. It's all of a piece of this universe and of this kind of the ethos that the show has, but also like showing the kind of like romance of like all of the side players in the DC universe who would just be like the main players in a normal story. Between like Hawkman and Hawkgirl and even just like Bane. Bane's continued just like a search for not even love but some sort of acceptance. and Bane is like, I think I've said this before. Bane is one of the best characters on TV right now, like hands down.
He is fun.
I love him so much. Yeah, this like, and then just like a fun cameo with like Brett Goldstein. Like, just yes, it's great. Like almost no notes. Like I love this.
This is very, very strange of us, but I'm pretty sure we can disagree on the next one.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so that's a good segue. Let's take us into our next show, which is Daisy Jones and the Six, which is now streaming on Amazon. I believe 4 episodes are out right now.
6.
God damn it. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. I've watched the first one, so what do you think of Daisy Jones and the Six?
I mean, I read the book. I did not read the book before watching it. Like, I watched the first 2 or 3, said, wait, stop. Went and got the book because I had it, my pile of books. Everyone has a pile of books they're like meaning to read at some point in their lives. And they haven't gotten to. So I was like, oh, I think I got this in my pile. So I went and got it. It was a quick read. It's a really quick book. And then I read it. And then I think there's an appreciation of it as what it is. It is a mess. It's supposed to be a kind of messy show. And I watched more than you. The first episode is slow, I think. I think the first 3, probably the first 4, are kind of slow. Like, I think the show takes too long and set up a story. I do think the way the story's told is interesting. I like the sort of interview style format of it all. But it is, first of all, not a show to, I think, really take sides. Who the hell knows who's telling the truth? Everyone's telling their own version of it anyway. So you can go into the show and decide, I like this character or this other character, and this character is 100% right. But it's also a show, I feel, where there are some specific right and wrong things as the story develops. And it's not really like, I don't know. You don't, if you went into this expecting, I don't know, a happy ending or like, oh, a ship that's gonna live happily ever after, you're probably gonna come out of this disappointed.
Right. So I have not read the book, so I'm coming at this from a place of nowhere. I'm starting at 0. So I'll say off the bat, the show is impeccably cast. With Riley Keough, Camilla Marone, Sam Claflin, Timothy Oliphant. Like it's a great cast. I think this is fine. It's okay. I don't have like wide sweeping thoughts about it. Yeah, like the first episode, it's kind of bland, is how I feel.
Yeah, I don't actually think we disagree. It's just that you didn't watch enough. I think the first 3 are bland. Right. The first 4 even, which is a really bad thing when you're trying to catch people. Because like if you're asking people to get to episode 5 to get invested in the story, 90% of people will be like, I'm out by 2. Bye.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Yeah, and there's a lot of it that I'm just like not into. Of like, I don't love the talking head version of the show. Like, it either it's trying to split the difference between like being a straight, just narrative storytelling and then talking heads, like faux talking heads documentary style, and it needs to more strongly commit to one of those, which it's not willing to do because of like what it is as an adaptation, So like it's fine, not my thing. I don't really care about Billy Dunn. Like Sam Claflin's doing a good performance, but I don't care about that character,
Yeah, but that for me never really changed. Like, I'm sorry, I know some people love Billy, and I didn't hate Billy. But like, I mean, my entire thing with the show is I thought it was a pretty decent adaptation. I enjoyed the book. I didn't hate the show, but it's also not a show like, and we maybe agree with it. I just have more episodes in me. It's a show I enjoyed. I think fans of the book will probably enjoy it. Like, I thought it was a good adaptation. I thought it had heart and all of that. But it's not a show that will stay with me. Like, I'm not gonna think about it when my sister asks me what she should watch, probably, and like I will not be like, oh my god, let's search for stuff on Twitter. Like it's just okay.
Right.
It was a show. It was there. I watched it, and it's fine. Okay, next, sort of.
Yeah, like I think that Riley Keough's the standout of the show, but like she's not in enough of the first episode. Like, but
Yeah.
I feel like it puts more of an emphasis on Billy than Riley Keough's character, Billy than Daisy Jones, and like that's not a that to me feels like a bad investment of time, you know? Where,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, I don't.
Daisy is inherently a more interesting character.
Right. Yeah. Billy is. Yeah. I mean, I think he's doing as much as he can with it. Again, for the source material, and I think the source material was maybe perhaps more interesting because it works better in paper when they're doing the interview style and you have an unreliable narrator and you don't really know book wise what the real story is. Like, I think that a show has to make more decisions of what is the real story as they're telling it, while the book can just be like, here's 20 different versions of the same story, you decide.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also like Billy is like the like brooding, handsome, like rock star guy. It's like I don't care about that. Like I've seen what you're doing. Don't care. Doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, he's also playing like a teenager at some point, and I'm like, yeah, I love you, Sam, but that's
No.
not working. Like, I remember when you were younger, so this whole thing ain't working.
Yeah, yeah, no. I was when I watched in like the first scenes of him in the show of like in the 70s. I was like, what age are you supposed to be right now? Like, are you legitimately supposed to be a teenager, or are you supposed to be like the older kid who's brought in? Because it feels like you're supposed to be in like your 20s, working with teenagers.
Yeah, like the age difference is not supposed to be as big as, like, the thing is, he just looks to me like a 30 something, which he is.
Right.
And like, I'm not even saying that in a bad way. He is a handsome man, but he does not look like a teenager or even a young 20 something. So
No, like he feels like a laughable like 21 Jump Street kind of thing.
yeah.
Of like, there's no way you were ever like, you've not been a teenager for a long time. Yeah, that's Daisy Jones in the Six. Let's move it along to some real Clowntown shit, which is The Flash season 9, episode 5, The Mask of the Red Death, part 2. So I haven't talked about this since the season premiere. Yeah, this is extremely silly, like extremely goofy. The good thing that I like about this is it's not trying, like, the problem that the Flash has had in previous seasons, like even going all the way back to like season 2 with Zoom, was that like it stretched out a big bad for way too long, right? Like Zoom, Savitar, the Thinker. Like I think I stopped watching sometime in like season 5, but like all of those like tries to take like these big bad villains and then just like super stretch it. And like I think like a lot of Arrowverse shows had this problem, like Arrow had this problem a lot too, of just like not knowing when to call quits on a villain and bring in a new one. So I like that this feels like a somewhat definitive ending for an arc, like it feels it feels like what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did, where it'll have like these kind of blocks of arcs of just like half our season is this, half our season is this, which I think works a lot better for the kind of silly, frenetic plotting that the Flash does.
They just don't have enough episodes to do it any other way. So I don't even think they tried to do that. It's just They have a shortened season.
I like Javicia Leslie as the Red Death. She's doing a very, like I said, it's very goofy. Like it's very kind of campy performance. But I like her as Ryan Wilder. I'm a constant defender of like Batwoman as a show, mainly just because a lot of the discourse around Batwoman was like it was a bad show, and I don't co-sign that belief. Like I've seen bad Arrowverse, and that wasn't that. Like I've seen bad seasons of Arrow. Like this is not like bad seasons of like Arrow and Supergirl. This is not that.
Right.
This is Batwoman was not where I make Lena the villain for some goofy ass reason. Like Batwoman was a perfectly fine. Like I thought it was a perfectly good show. Like between like what Ruby Rose was doing as Kate Kane, who actually grew into that role really well, and then what Javicia Leslie was doing on that show with Ryan Wilder in the last 2 seasons. It does feel like kind of a bold thing of like someone who has been under attack so much of like being the main character and the hero and stepping into the Batwoman role on that show and then bringing her here to be the villain. Like that feels like a risky gamble, which I can't say super paid off, but it works it works well enough to work, I guess is what I'd say.
I mean, I think we're probably at our first disagreement because I have a lot of issues with the Flash.
Right.
Like, and I mean, and I the only thing we do agree is that I think Red Dead works. I think she did really well. I mean, probably about as well as she could, all things considered. I'm glad they brought her on. I also thought Batwoman was came at the tail end of the Arrowverse when we were all like judging it for like based on I don't know what standards because people said that about Black Lightning too. It's like, oh, but it's not as good. That's what? Like, do you remember Arrow season 5? Like, hello, like standards here. But the Flash, like, I think they tried in the season. Like, there's been an attempt, but I don't know. So many of the things they're doing, like, I don't know. Like, what is up with Caitlyn? Who, whatever her name is now, can't keep up.
Yeah.
Um,
That's an insane.
cannot. It just makes no sense. Like, who needed another version? Why did you need to get rid of the version before? Like, why did you never in 9 seasons figure out what she was, what you wanted her to be, who she was gonna stay as? Like, and then at some point she was Caitlyn, but she was Killer Frost, but she wasn't, and then there were two, and then like it's I cannot even keep track of all the storylines. And now she's back. She's got a blue hair thing in her hair. But she's someone like I don't care. Like I've just spent way too much time trying to figure out what's going on for a character that I don't think ever gave me enough. Like they never figured out what she was, so I could never connect emotionally to the character. Like her best moments were season 1. Like that's really far off. And like she had some moments as Killer Frost, but like the lack of a direction storytelling wise has always hurt her. And then I think the show still season 9 hasn't the show has never figured out how to use its leading lady. They treat her as an afterthought and like, oh, Iris is there. Oh, Iris is pregnant. Another character is gonna tell you. Like, I don't even know how. Like, I don't understand. Like, the whole scene with whatever Caitlyn 4.0's name is. It's just being like, "Oh, you're pregnant." I was like, "This is exactly like the wedding." Like, do they think fans are gonna react well to this? Um, like I do. Do they sit in the writers' room and go, "Oh, I have a great idea of how Iris like pregnancy can be announced. How about we have someone else tell her that she's pregnant?" It's like, hello. Like, have you checked the internet anytime in the past 9 years?
Right.
First of all, like I also like they have never known what to do with Iris, but they have also never known what to do with a ship that was built from the beginning to work. It's like they put them together, and it's not even that Candace and Grant don't have chemistry. It's that they don't really use them, like, and when they use them, like they go too hard. Like it's not a normal. Like we'll have one episode that feels like it's all about Barry and Iris, and then there'll be like 10 episodes where you're like, "Ooh, are they still married? Like they talk to each other? Do they live together?" And yeah, and like the whole scene with them and now with the pregnancy reveal was so weird to me. Like I Iris gets told she's pregnant. She's like, oh, like it's not supposed to happen now, whatever. Like she and Barry get to hug for like 2 seconds, and then everyone goes to congratulate Barry. I was like, I'm sorry, do you understand who's pregnant? Like, why is everyone congratulating Barry? Like, hello, go hug Iris. And the only one who does is Joe. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, and that this feels like the show what they've always done, sort of with Candace, with Iris, and just sort of with the couple in general. Like, and then I honestly don't know. Like, I think for anyone who probably likes Candace, Iris, Barry, like, you can probably make an episode out of like 3 or 4 minutes of their screen time and look be happier and ignore the rest of the Flash. But yeah, some of the decisions are like again, I still sort of can see it in my head when everyone got up to congratulate Barry, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, if I don't have kids, but if I ever tell people I'm pregnant and they go congratulate my husband, throwing hands, okay? God.
Yeah, no, it's the Flash has always struggled to know exactly what to do with Iris. Like far too often, like going to the well of like Iris is gonna die, or like Iris is, I don't know, trapped in a mirror or whatever, like trapped in a mirror dimension. Like it's always had that stumbling block, you know. Almost like it struggles to like let Barry and Iris have like the same atmosphere, you know, like that. Like Iris's character would not be too big, but like detract too much from like Barry, and it's like that's a weird impulse to have.
Look, I'm not here to say good things about Arrow, but Arrow always did that part better. Like they were never afraid to let Felicity have storylines, even though they suck. Okay, not even defending the storylines they gave her, especially after like season 30. They have no idea what they were doing either. But like, they always played the ship better than the Flash did. And I'm like, I'm baffled just watching the Flash. It's like, and then I understand as a people who are fans of the ship just watch the show and are like, oh, they touched for 3 seconds. Let's celebrate because it doesn't happen. I was like, these people have been together for like 7 seasons. What is going on? Like, you can't even make like a super cut of their scenes. It's not even that long.
Yeah. When you have as much like on air, like actual like canon footage of a couple together as like Supercore, which is a non-canon ship, that's not a great sign. That's not great. That's a problem.
I sometimes think there was more love in Kara and Lena looking at each other than they give Barry and Iris. So like they don't even get like their slow moments. Like I'm serious. Like
No, I agree.
I would even be like, look at what Supercorp did. Oh, that wasn't a ship, but they're doing better than you. Like you said, imagine that.
Imagine that. Yeah, and this is ostensibly the episode that like Joe leaves, I guess, because he's the actors already talked about like not being on the show anymore, and this has kind of like prompted the show ending because like a bunch of the actors were like, nope, I'm out. So like this is ostensibly like his exit of the show, and it's like that's so weird. Like this is like Kaylee Bryant leaving Legacies, and it's like, well, going on a bus ride now, and it's like this is the equivalent of that, you know?
Yeah, your daughter's pregnant. It's a good time to leave to do whatever. But like, do you remember that Joe has a kid?
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen him in 5 years. Is that kid alive?
Yeah, where is Wally? Everyone forgot about Wally.
No, not about Wally. Like the younger, the baby, whatever.
Oh, was it? We saw the baby like in like
when
episode 2 or 3, I think.
All right, we saw him. You're right, but then before that, we hadn't seen him for like 3 seasons. No, Cecile got pregnant. She had the baby. Baby disappeared for a good 3 seasons, and then you're right, we did see him again. But like, I mean, just because fans complain, probably because they forgot. I'm pretty sure they forgot. Everyone was out there doing a gazillion things. Who was babysitting?
Who's babysitting?
Like, God. Yeah, and then Wally, like, that's not a thing. And then this episode felt weird, also sort of like a culmination of something. Like, we know Iris is gonna get pregnant because we met the kids. Like, no shock here. But it's a culmination of something to have it end with Caitlyn 4.0 being like, oh, you're pregnant. I was like, okay. Okay.
Weird. Yeah.
Weird. And also, what is that blue hair? Like, is that supposed to be a nod to Killer Frost? It's just horrible.
It's really weird. Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't know. At this, I think I said this on the podcast when we talked about the season opener, but like to me, this is less about like watching the Flash and more about like this being like the Arrowverse like victory lap, you know? Like everyone just like showing up here and like kind of like concluding the Arrowverse, you know? Like this is less like, oh, I want to see how the Flash ends. It's more like I want to see how like the Arrowverse ends.
Right. Well, I mean, 2 days ago, Superman and Lois was part of the Arrowverse. Now it's not.
Yeah.
So
who knows anymore?
Yeah.
So let's jump to our next show, which is the Mandalorian, season 1, episode and 2, season 3, episode 1 and 2. The Apostate and the Mines of Mandalore. So what do you think of this?
I mean, I think everyone I've seen a lot of discourse about the Mandalorian. I think judging the Mandalorian by Andor standards is a bit like now we're just Star Wars should be this. Mandalorian was always this, I think. And I've seen some people like, oh, it's slow. It's always been kind of slow. Like this is same thing. Like I actually think this season's moving faster than some of the other seasons. Like we've spent just like the book of Boba Fett. Like we spent a lot of time in those shows doing nothing. Like
Yeah.
entire episodes that felt like side quests in a video game. So I actually think this is moving faster. So the whole filler episode thing discourse that I saw felt hilarious to me. I was like, are we watching the same thing? So I don't know that we are. I don't have like any strong feelings about it yet. I think it's gonna get interesting because I think they're going into Mandalore. Like I think episode 2 was much better than episode 1. It had a lot of more nods to like people who watched Clone Wars and people who like. I thought it was fun. I unironically enjoy the Mandalorian for what it is. I'm not expecting it to be more. I think as long as Grogu is cute, which he is, and like and then that I think it also kind of helps that we watched The Last of Us. So now I can imagine Pedro's face while 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 Amando's like doing his thing with his kid. So
Right.
I don't know. I think there's been a lot of discourse that has to do with Andor and people sort of expecting the Mandalorian to or looking at it with different eyes and be like, this show is not as good. This show is exactly what it's always been. And it was fun and it's the reason why we got other Star Wars shows. So in that way, I have enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, I remember during like the first and even some of the second season, like I was frustrated because it felt like the Mandalorian like always threatened to like kick up to a different gear, and it always just like stayed in that same area. You know, like it was always just like adventures with Mando and Grogu, and it never like hit up to anything more. And now I'm like more accepting of like what the Mandalorian is. It's just more of a lark. I remember someone during like season 2 tweeted that like the Mandalorian as a show is just like somebody giving Jin like, hey, here's the main adventure, and just going nope, going this way, and like actively avoiding like the main plot of the show, and just like actively trying to find like as you said like side quests to go down and like narrow bins to find. And this actually feels like finding like the actual narrative thrust of the show, like actually finding like the mythology.
Right. I actually, like I said, I thought they got down to business much faster. I was like, episode 2, we're already in Mandalore, things are happening, and people are like, oh, this is slow. I was like, did you watch the first few seasons? Did you watch the book of Boba Fett?
Yeah. Well, like, and it was frustrating in like the first 2 seasons, especially like the first season of like, how did we track the trajectory of like the Mandalorians as a species, of like how we left them in Rebels to here now in this show, and like this episode and the premiere like does a really good job of being like, here's like kind of the connective tissue from like Bo-Katan getting the Darksaber in Rebels, and then like tracing that to like where both like the Darksaber and her are in this show now, and like how that kind of affected the Mandalorians in general. So like I thought that was like actually like the kind of overall like mythos building that like I was kind of waiting for this show to give me.
Yeah, we've actually agreed too much. Can we move on to something we disagree on? Like,
Yeah. Well, one last thing before we move on. I like Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan. Like I like that performance. That haircut is still really bad.
right. Yeah.
It's still a very bad haircut. They're trying to match the aesthetic of Rebels and Clone Wars, but like it doesn't work.
It doesn't work in live action. At this point, like, yeah, I feel like that's my biggest criticism of that too.
Yeah, girl needs a haircut. So let's move on to our next show, which is Alaska Daily, Season 1, Episode 7, Enemy of the People. And this is one that I talked about back on the Lost Cause pod, and it went on hiatus in November and just came back, which seems like a mistake for a show that's only supposed to have like 10 to 13 episodes in its season, and we're on episode 7. Okay, not ideal. You told me off the air that you watched the first episode when it came out, right?
Yeah, I watched the pilot when it came out and found it interesting enough, but like not enough to stand out. And like we also discussed how much TV there is.
Yes. Yeah, it's an interesting show. I think it's also a necessary show in the sense of like showing like the actual work of journalism and reporting and like illustrating how vital that is to like as it says in this episode, like the functioning of a successful democracy. But it has often suffered from a lot of both sidesism of trying to appease both liberals and conservatives, which I don't think often works. And you can often feel the show kind of struggling to maintain that balance. And that's really evident in this episode where Hilary Swank's character is taken hostage by a gunman who has been harassing her throughout the season and wants her to issue a confession that she's basically a charlatan who like isn't good at her job, isn't good at reporting facts, doesn't operate in truth. And again, like tries too hard to sympathize with someone who we shouldn't be sympathizing with, you know? Like it makes the argument that like society has cast off people like this who believe in a lot of like Ben Shapiro talking points, you know? But doesn't engage in the fact that those people are actually dangerous and not in the I'm pointing a gun at your head kind of way. So it continues to just have this problem of it lacks a really clear, like, defining voice. Tries to hit, like, some kind of liberal talking points at one point, and then Hilary Swank goes on, makes a mention of being canceled by the woke mob. Like, it wants to have its cake and eat it too. It's not good at it, though. So when it's just, like, getting into the actual reporting, when it's like digging into the case of missing indigenous women in Alaska, that is a part of the show that works. When it's trying to appeal to like conservative America, not as good. And like that has remained a consistent problem. So that's Alaska Daily. I don't know how much more I'll talk about this. Let's move on to our next show, Poker Face, Season 1, Episode 9, Escape from Shit Mountain. Points for a great episode title.
Yes. But great, like, just have, I'm afraid we might agree, but I have a good thing to say about Poker Face in general. A show I did not expect to like. I don't think the marketing did it any favors. It felt a little cheesy, like, or maybe I just saw so many commercials of it, and I was just tired. It felt like I don't what was I watching on Peacock Vampire Academy, and it was all the time, and I was tired. And then I don't know, it felt like we had Super Bowl ads. It felt like it was everywhere, and it was a little too much. And I went into it, when you go into it and you're like, I'm gonna hate this. People are gonna love it, but I'm determined to hate it. And I sort of stayed there even at the beginning. I didn't hate it, but I was like, it's not that great. Eh. And then there comes a point with the show's like, you actually like me. And I'm like, fine. I actually do enjoy you. I don't know that I enjoy it as much as some other people, but I went from I'm gonna hate this show to fine. I guess the show is more than watchable, which I guess is saying something.
So this is the part where we're gonna disagree, I guess. I unequivocally love this show. I don't think I've talked about it since we went off the air last time, but yeah, this show's great. I was behind on it for a little while, but I caught up in a hurry, and yeah, it's outstanding. Natasha Lyonne is really great. Like I think I think I said this to Logan a few weeks back, but like it feels like Ryan Johnson took everyone saying that Natasha Lyonne should play Columbo and just said, I can make a show out of that. Yeah, I can do that. And that's how Poker Face was born.
I mean, yeah, the show is half her, like half, 3/4 works because of her, and then I don't know. Some of I'm not even gonna criticize it much. Like I think it works, and it works better than I think it had any right to. It's just maybe there's a part of me that just didn't want it to work, and I don't know why. I love her. I love the people behind it. It just felt like, you know, when you get upset with a show before it even comes out because they're just you feel like so many good shows don't get promotion, and you're seeing the show everywhere, and you're just upset. Like it makes absolutely no sense, but you're like, why is this the only show getting promotion? So you're like, I'm just gonna hate this show. And I tried, and I don't think I fully grew out of it. I learned to sort of mostly enjoy it, but I'm still sort of a little bit like, is Peacock has thrown all its promotion at Poker Face, and maybe that's what makes me mad.
Right, right. But also, like, how much does Peacock have to promote? Like, it has this and Fresh Prince, which I've also seen a lot of promotion for.
I mean, I can't. So mad they canceled Vampire Academy. That's what I'm mad.
That's
Because I'm mad they canceled Vampire Academy. Barely promoted it, but I was seeing ads for Poker Face everywhere. And then they're like, "Well, people are not ready to watch young adult content um, in our streaming service." And I was like, "But how do you know that? That feels like words they pull out of nowhere. Like, what? People only want adult content. Like, well, if the adult content is all you promote, that's all people want. That and like Real Housewives of whatever."
right. But so, Escape from Shit Mountain, to get us back to that, in a seamless segue.
Right. But like I almost feel like I can't talk about the penultimate episode. Like, okay, you talk about it. Maybe I'll steal your thoughts because I watched the other one.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't watched that one yet. Yeah, so I like almost like the change in format of Charlie going from the one who just needs to sniff out clues because someone that like she had become associated with or friends with was killed, and now she is the one on the verge of being killed, and has to like navigate her way out of that. And the thing that I like about Poker Face is it feels like a response to not engaging with like propaganda shows of how can we solve crimes that doesn't like explicitly involve the police, you know? Like how can we get people to like fess up and get them to be punished for the things that they did without actually like working with the police in any kind of significant manner. So like that's something that I've enjoyed over like this first season, but especially here of like I'm just going like trying to position Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character into incriminating himself at the end, which I think is like an interesting balance that the show manages. But yeah, like Joseph Gordon-Levitt is so slimy in this episode. Like I forget the movie. But there was some like bro machismo movie that he made back in like 2012 or 2013 or something that was basically like this kind of. This is a little less heightened than that, but it's very much like the worst kind of guy you can imagine.
I think he's very good. I also sort of enjoy how we sort of got to know him by playing one type of character, and he's like one of those actors who are like, just gonna do everything else after that, so you can never just think of me as one thing.
Yes. Yeah. But I enjoy like twists and turns this episode makes, and like burying someone at the base of a tree. Like I think that's like an interesting like crime thing that I haven't seen like a whole lot done, of like not burying a body but just like putting it under a tree, because like that would technically work, I guess. And it's not something I had actually thought about a whole lot in the past. Like
that's probably good though.
Yeah, sure. Or
Says good things
it's not
about
something
you.
that I've seen a lot done, of like of like fixes to killings of one or crime covering ups. So like that's smart. I think it's really good. Yeah, I love this episode in general. So give me a thought. Give me a soundbite. What we got?
I think this was a really good episode. I just think the last episode is even better.
Okay.
So it's a little stuck in my mind. Like I think between episode 9 and episode 10 was when I decided, dang it. Fine, show, fine. Like, okay. So that's where I'm at. Like I'd be really interested in seeing what you think of the finale.
Okay.
It is the finale, like I hope, because the way it ended.
Well, I don't know. There's a whole lot more to say at this point. So let's jump to our next show, which is Abbott Elementary, Season 2, Episode 18, Teacher Appreciation. So I've talked on the show a lot about Abbott Elementary. I think it is a very good show. The Janine-centric plots from the season have begun to wear on me. And like this was true last year too. I said that on Lost Cause Pod a lot. That like the Janine episodes where like she is a focus do not work as well. So it's interesting going back to a like more Janine focused episode after like the last few where she has like taken a more of a step back in terms of the spotlight with her dealing with her sister and like navigating like the tension and kind of resentment there. But first, tell me what you think.
I think you're wrong, and this is a perfect show. There's nothing this show does wrong, like ever. I think nothing, absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Like,
okay.
Nothing. I have no complaints at all about this show.
That's fair.
Like, I knew we'd find one thing where we really disagree on.
You know what? That's fair. That's your prerogative. I know it would come.
I mean, you can't be wrong about things. It's fine.
It's fine. I do think that this episode takes Janine and utilizes her very well in this episode, though. With everything that I said, still remaining true, and I believe it. Teacher appreciation uses her really well. And just like the scenes that she has with her sister played by Io Berry is just very good. Having relationships between siblings is very complicated, especially like I have two younger sisters, so like I get that part of it, and just like a lot of the tension and like the bitterness that comes into play there. Like some of the most like vicious and like unhinged arguments I've ever had in my life were with my sister. Like the way that siblings can like lay out on each other with like almost no remorse is just endlessly fascinating. Like the way that they know exactly what will like affect you and trigger you in that moment is unlike anything else on this planet. And so like the way that this episode gets into that, I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, I also have a younger sister, so I really like that. But I think the show, like the show in general had like big shoes to fill. Like the sitcom sort of world, and like we've been judging it based on other shows that have done really well from the beginning. And I think the show does really well at the balance of giving something new and still hitting the beats we sort of need for a show of this kind. I think the episode works really well. I don't mind. I've seen also some criticism of people being like, well, episodes that focus on so and so are like, have you watched TV in the last few decades? Like, every show does this. Like, you have character, and I am not a particular fan of shows that do things like episode 1 is about character A, and then 2 is about character B, and we won't go back to character A till episode 7. And then the other, like, I hate like procedural style, like Chicago PD, which does that. absolutely hate it. Like, do the other characters even talk to each other? Like, does the character who is not the episode 4 even have lines? Like, I hate that. I don't think Abbott Elementary takes it anywhere near that. I think they have a good balance, and I think this was an episode that does a really good job with the heavy stuff, and also a really good job. The show's very good at the light parts, the jokes that sort of make a show like this work.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's good in the way that it figured out how to use Janine. Because like my problem with like the way she's utilized, and particularly this was like a problem in the first half of the season, was like it felt like she was in a kind of like holding pattern of like just like doing the same thing week in and week out and not learning any kind of lesson from it, of having big lofty plans, optimistic plans, does something insane, has to be brought back down, you know, and just like doing that like rinse repeat. And this is markedly different, of Janine trying to navigate a deep held hurt, which is a lot different than the motivations she's had this season, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have nothing but good things to say about it. Like, honestly, I just think they've handled it all really well. Like, even the Janine and like the kid, everything that people were expecting, I think they subverted expectations really well, while still having a story to tell, because you can't just a Game of Thrones subvert expectations for the sake of it, and then you have nothing.
Right.
I think they've done a really good job of it, and I absolutely love the show unequivocally. If you have a problem with it, you're wrong.
Yeah. The problems I've had haven't been so much like the character or the writing. It's just a matter of repetition.
Right, but in a show like this, how do you like you have to have some like
Right.
it's almost impossible to avoid.
Right. Yes. Yes. But I think it's cleared that at this point, because it hasn't had that problem, especially since it's come back from break. So I feel a lot better about like the path it's on now. Like I don't disagree with you. Much of the show is very, very good. And that remains true. Like the, I guess subplot of all the teachers vying for the court tickets or the game tickets is very good. And it just ended up going to Mr. Johnson. Like that's great. That's essentially just like playing themselves out of tickets. Like that's really good.
You have fun, admit it.
I'm not saying I didn't have fun. I can have criticisms and still say I enjoy the show a lot. Let's go to our last episode of the week, which is The Last of Us season 1, episode 8, When We Are in Need. I don't think I've talked about this show since episode 2, so this will be kind of a catch up on this as well. I've really loved this season as it's been. I want to say a couple things. The last episode was not a filler episode, and even if it was, it would still be good. Filler episodes are good. This is my political platform. Thank you. Yeah, like a lot of you just don't know what a filler episode is at this point, and that's fine because TV has broken most of us. But no, guys, come on, let's get a grip.
Man, I hate to agree with you, but I actually do agree with that.
Yes, and also to all the homophobic fans out there, stay mad. I don't care. Like
The show doesn't care either.
yeah, you knew what you were getting. You knew that Ellie's a lesbian. Like I don't. What do you want me to tell you?
I mean, if they didn't know what they were getting and they watched episode 3 with Bill and Frank, and then after that they didn't know, so like, why are you here still? Then
Yep.
just like stop watching and stop complaining and leave us alone to enjoy it.
Get the fuck out of here. Yeah, but so this episode with Ellie basically going up against a pedophilic cannibal pastor. Like I'm just like, this is hitting a lot of like religious trauma of like, yeah, like the entire point of like establishing a relationship with like a priest, a pastor, a preacher, is that there's a kind of like inherent trust there that like they can kind of be on that level with you and it's okay. But that trust is so easily violated, you know, which we have found. Like the chances of you being like something happening to you as a child at a church is so much higher than something happening to you at a drag race. And so like I think like the way this episode gets into that of the difference between religion and cult is there isn't one, and religion in general attracts people like this, you know, like they attract darker souls, and that's just something inherent to the system. You know, and there's just something there is a darkness there that like someone has to contend with at a certain point, as like we have all found to be true. And like the way that like Ellie bumps up against that, and like just the creepiness of that in this episode is so good. Like I was crawling out of my skin.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've enjoyed the first season of The Last of Us, even as sort of as someone who knew what was coming, because I'm not really a gamer, but my husband played the game and would tell me it was one of those games that when he played it, he thought the story was so good that he'd finish playing in the day and tell me what happened. Like he was telling me about a TV show he watched. So when we started watching The Last of Us, he was like, "Oh, you don't know what happens." And I was like, "I don't know what happens. Do you remember how much of the story you told me?" And he was like, "Do you remember?" And I was like, "Yes, you told me details. Like, why would I forget?" So I basically knew everything that was coming. I still think the show is worth it, even if you know what's coming. I do find that a lot of the discourse of episode 8 has been about David, and I so don't care about David. Like you said, the things you had, like, I think the discourse of religion and the apocalypse, like, been there.
Right.
Been there. The Walking Dead, been there. Like, really been there. Like, I understand that why they had to do it, and they're following the game, and like, I'm not even saying the episode is bad. I just, that's so much of the discourse after it has been about David, oh, and he's a cannibal, and like, yeah, been there. Like, don't even care. Like, I don't have one brain cell to spend on David. At all. Like, I was more interested in sort of the Joel of it all, like him getting, like, first of all, no one's like, I just want to be the one to say, like, even if you're in apocalypse or not, like that thing, that injection that Ellie gave him, it's not gonna cure you of anything. Like, that's a lie. Just,
yeah,
I want everyone, like, that's not how it works. But okay, but we're gonna suspend disbelief for the sake of the show. And I just really like how Pedro plays the sort of switch in Joel, from I don't care about this kid to I will kill whoever I have to sort of get a chance to get to this kid. And I know that's always where it was going, but it's a different thing to sort of know where it was going and to see the switch played out acting wise.
right.
And I like that it seems like a seamless switch. Like, he's like just torturing people left and right, normal shit, not any qualms about it. That Ellie herself is just like, and I think she does come out of this pretty traumatized. But she's also just like, sometimes I look at her and think, what would it be to be like her age in the apocalypse? Like, you've never known any peace. Like, you've never known anything but this level of borderline anxiety and having to do whatever to survive. We can't really imagine that, but I think Bella Ramsey, they play that very, very well. But just like, I every time everyone wants to talk about episode 8, I just want to talk about the scene at the end where Joel finds Ellie, and you can see that he's seeing Ellie, but he's also seeing his kid. Not necessarily that he's seeing Sarah, but that he's seeing Ellie as his kid now. And I'm like, the way the show took us there, I think we were, obviously there's still an episode left, but this is sort of the culmination of that journey.
Right.
And the show did it so well, and that the creepy cannibal had to come in the middle. Fine, like, I guess there was a storytelling reason for David but I just don't find David that interesting. It's like,
Right.
David, forgot about your face already. Bye.
Right. Right. Yeah. I guess just somebody who like grew up in the church. Like I find I find their dynamic like a lot more interesting. Just like the kind of monster that David is. But you're not wrong.
All right,
You're not wrong.
it is very like it's very church coded, and like, yeah, I do think it's not that it's not an important match. Like they do that well. It's just I feel like we've been there with post-apocalyptic shows and the cannibalism part. Like I saw some people being like, "Oh my god, they were cannibals." I was like, they were they were cannibals in Game of Thrones, in the X-Files. That was like 20 something years ago. Like this isn't new. This isn't the first time TV has had cannibals. Like,
Yeah, there is something to be said about like the Christian community that like goes to barbarism though. Like the kind of the supposedly like upstanding moral pillars of society that like do the worst thing imaginable. Like when like their backs up against the wall. Like like it reminded me of the story of the libertarian city. The city, I think it was in Virginia, that got overtaken by libertarian rulers and like everyone, like libertarians at every level. That then got overtaken by bears. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of that's the logical extension of this. Like, this is the bears. But even with how well I think all that is done, um, the episode starts out of Joel killed this girl's dad, and then that is dropped. That is just fully dropped, like throughout this episode, because when it pivots from Joel killed this girl's dad to David is a violent pedophile, like that first part is forgotten, and like that is a flaw in the episode. To the extent that like at the end of the episode, it forgets that there are even any people in that town at all.
right. Storytelling wise, like I know why they did that, and I agree that it's a flaw in the episode. They're sort of probably not wanting to. This is a story that they feel like they're gonna tell at some other point.
Yes.
So they're not gonna tell it now. But like the logistics of the leaps, like you said, I sometimes people watch TV without giving it this much level of thought, and no one's thinking like, oh, could he really be cured from that injection, or where are the other people, or how did he get from here to there so fast when it took him so. But I always think of those things, and I'm like, okay, like look, if the other things are working, I'm gonna give you a pass. But did you notice how this does not make sense? And then the entirety of the episode, like the thing that hurt me the most at the end was like, I was like, oh, and Ellie lost her code. Like, and I know that was like fixated. I was like, this is adult brain. It's like she doesn't have a code anymore. She lost her code. And I kept thinking the code, like that was the most important thing. So that's kind of hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. No, the thing I always think of is the song from Lucifer. It's like, don't overthink it. And it's like, yep, just don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. These are things that I tell myself constantly while watching TV. It's just like, nope, I don't need to worry about that.
Right. How do people get from A to B? Or like how have you ever seen a show? Like I was watching Outer Banks on Netflix recently. I just binged that. And then every time it happened like I think it would happen every episode. The characters would be stranded here, and the next scene they'd be wearing different clothes. I was like, okay, but like, how did you change? Where did you change? Where did you get the clothes? Like, I don't understand this. Like, you carry a magical backpack with 5 different outfits? Like, I don't get it. Like, and I know the vibes of the show is that I should not care. Um, and then it's not even like, but it's so noticeable because it's one of these shows where like they're just wearing like beige kind of clothes. So like, I mean, it might be possible for you to carry around like one extra set of clothes, but like 3, 4, like you haven't been home in 3 weeks. Okay, you're out. Like, how many clothes do you have? I don't get it.
Yeah. No, it's like when I used to watch The 100. It's like, Clark, where did you get that leather jacket from? Where did you get that? How did you find that? Who made that for you? I have questions.
Yeah. Post-apocalyptic shows are fun that way. You're like, yeah, that makes no sense, but let it go because Because if not, I'll just be the one person. Like I remember back in the day, I used to review Once Upon a Time,
Oh.
and there was always I got to a point of I don't know what to call my feelings about that show, where half of my review was like a list of things that did not make sense in the episode. That's where I was. I was fed up enough that I had time to put together a list of what did not make sense because they lost complete track of their own like family tree, their own like where characters were. They lost track of everything.
So that's it for this week. Check back in next week for what we will be doing. Until then, Lizzie, where can we find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Lizzie That, and I've been on Tumblr lately. Why? I don't know. Because I look, Twitter scares me. Okay, Twitter's gonna disappear one day. We're just gonna get up, and Twitter's not gonna be there, and we're all gonna be like, "What happened?" So I've been on Tumblr. It's also Lizzie That. I don't know how much I'm gonna make it on Tumblr because it feels like every time I open Tumblr, I feel like it's 2014 again. So like there's a little bit of a disconnect. But I'm not good with TikTok, and I suck at Instagram. So probably gonna at least on Tumblr I can type. So yes, you can find me at Lizzie That on both.
Nice. And you can follow me on Twitter at the Drew Koenig, and you can find me on TikTok at Drew_Koenig. You can follow my writing at drewkoenig.substack.com, and you can follow the podcast at Not Another TV Pod on Twitter and TikTok. And you can reach out to us, email us at notanothertvpodcast@gmail.com. Any thoughts, comments, questions, goat submissions, show recommendations that you have, anything that should be covered on the podcast. You can find more episodes on Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Let me know if there's any podcasting services that you use that we're not currently on, and I will work to add it there. Until next week, we'll see you all around.
Bye.